Hey beauties, welcome back to Real Girl Talk Podcast Radio. I am your host, Sherry Ricard. I'm a medical professional, business leader, author, speaker, and adversity recovery expert, bringing you fascinating guests, business, beauty, and lifestyle tips to help you create a beautiful life, and always committed to keeping it real. Now let's dive in. Today's episode is sponsored by Alexo Athletica. Alexo simply means to defend and to help. Alexo will never back down from supporting a woman's rights to choose how she defends herself while striving to bring the best in fashionable, functional, active carry wear to the market. Alexo is broadening the definition of the word carry to encompass whatever the woman desires to carry in order to feel safe and be able to carry with confidence. Learn more and shop at alexoathletica.com. Welcome back to Real Girl Talk. I am your host, Sherry, and I have a beautiful lady with me today, Dr. Andi Simon. She is a corporate anthropologist, founder and CEO of Simon Associates Management Consultant, designed over a decade ago to help companies use the tools of anthropology to better adapt to changing times. Welcome to the show. I want to call you Dr. Andi. Can I do that?
Lots of people call me Dr. Andi. That's perfect. Thank you so much.
That's great. I'm super excited because I know that you have a really good perspective on business because you have been in multiple media outlets, right, Dr. Andi? Good Morning America, Forbes, Washington Post, Business Week, and you've also done over 500 in-person speaking engagements. So we are honored to have you. And I just want to start out with the question that some people might be asking and talk to us about what does it mean to be a corporate anthropologist?
What a great question. So I am an anthropologist. I discovered anthropology when I was in college and I did my research on immigrants. I was very fascinated with how people create new cultures. The words are the same, but what they did was completely different. And I was a professor for a decade. And then I got into business to apply anthropology to help organizations change. I became a banker, and for 14 years, I was an executive in 3 banks, all of which were going through deregulation. And everybody was looking around trying to figure out, how do we do this? And then I got into healthcare as an executive, helping hospitals adapt to managed care. And what I became humbled by is it's one thing to study it, but then that's what anthropologists do. We step out, we observe, we really want to understand what people are doing, not necessarily just what they say, but what does it really mean? Humans are meaning creatures. We give meaning to things.
Right.
And then after 9/11, I decided it was my time to go into my own business. And as a businesswoman, you understand that aha moment when you say it's time.
Mm-hmm.
And my PR firm that I hired said to me, oh, you're a corporate anthropologist that helps companies change. And I went, bingo, that's my elevator speech, and I haven't changed. And I picked up clients, Markel Paper, Montefiore Medical Center, Centenary College, clients that are in my book, On the Brink. But the whole point for them was, how do you help me change? And I would say to them, my job is to help you step back and see things through a fresh lens. It's the things you can't really see them. But when you step back and you take a look from the outside in, all of a sudden things that seem all clouded or unclear become, that's how we're doing it. And so that's my job. And then I've been working for 20 years now, helping companies do what they can't do, which is to change. And I used to preach, and you'd appreciate this, Sherry, if you want to change, have a crisis or create one.
Yeah.
And here's COVID, and I'm busier than I could ever have imagined with companies coming through, trying to figure out, I have no certainty. What do I do? The ambiguity is upsetting me. I don't know how to plan. Everything I knew isn't working now.
Right.
Everything's changing. So that's what we are specialized in. And that's what we like to bring to your audience about how do you do that?
Yeah. How do you do that? So talk to us a little bit about how do you make change for businesses and for people? Where do you start?
Well, first, we like them to go exploring with us. They need to visually awake to what is going on. And I tell them that you have a story in your head, because that's the way your brain works. It creates that wonderful perception of reality, and then you live that reality. But you often don't notice that the customers are moving in a new direction. The market's moving in a new way. You typically resist changes that come to you. Anything that's difficult, you'd rather avoid than do. And so once you begin to explore with me, I often have them do in an anthropological way, spend a day in the life of their customer. Actually see what they use for you instead of not. How do they amend it in some fashion? What are the go-arounds? Really get to know them as they're living with whatever it is you're serving them, whether it's B2B or B2C. And then let the aha happen. We know that the more ideas you have, the more likely they are big ones, and they come at the intersections. And so we like to do it with all of their staff. The more folks out there looking and seeing, the more they can bring ideas back. And then what we do is begin to craft a new story. The change requires us to visualize something. How am I going to do this differently? And once you get your guys and gals to begin to visualize something in a new way, you begin to see it come alive. You manage your mind, and your mind is visually active. It has a movie set up there. And what's so exciting is to watch the ahas develop, because all of a sudden they can see what's possible. And then we do a bunch of things to help them backward plan it, have a change that process. But I talk to them about small wins. If you're going to change and get there, you got to start, but the right steps. So if we backward plan it, in 2 years I made it here, I'm going to backward plan it. Now I need to take small wins to move myself forward. And your folks have to begin to tell stories about success and celebrate them. And what happens is all of a sudden the team that was resisting become your leaders. And even the folks who seem to be so undermining and sabotaging it become believers, because you're changing what they've always done. And what we find is once you get going, you don't need us anymore. Then you say, okay,
Right.
just keep pushing it. I've worked with some clients. I'm still working with them for several years now. And each time I think we've had enough, they say, no, we have to keep going. We have to
Right.
keep seeing what's happening, and times are changing. So it's a very exciting time for us and for your clients and for those who are listening.
And I wanted to ask you too, leadership effectiveness. There's so much that we can do to change in our business and in our personal lives for personal development, but we're so resistant to change because we're always in fear of what that change is going to bring. Is it going to be worse than what I have going on right now? Or is the change actually going to be better? And so I think that brings on the procrastination of wanting to do the change, and people get stuck doing the same thing over and over, but yet they expect a different result. Of course, that's the definition of insanity, right? One of my husband's favorite quotes. So how do you actually approach someone to have them change when they're resistant to change?
That's a wonderful question. I'll use a metaphor because what you're describing is the fear of failure, the fear of the unknown. A part of what we have to do is make the unfamiliar familiar and the unknowns more known. To your point, I don't know if the new is going to be better than the old. So rather than try it and fail, I'll stick with what I have, even if it's not working. So I use the metaphor of a play or performance. And I say, you know Macbeth really well now, and you know the role you have to play in it. And you get up every day and the habits take over and you perform it beautifully, but nobody's watching anymore. So
Mm,
you need a new play. Maybe it's Hamlet. It doesn't matter what the new one is, but you haven't written a script. You wouldn't put an actor on stage to perform without some rehearsal time. You haven't had any
right.
practice or a director. You haven't had any applause or even that period before you go live with it. So use the metaphor. It takes the pain out of it. You'd be amazed when people hear themselves now acting in a new way, as an actor might, as opposed to changing who they are.
Right.
The fear goes away. It's a metaphor. Now, you could think of it as a game. Sometimes we say the same thing. You know baseball really well, you're going to play cricket. You have no idea what the rules are. So we need to be humble that this isn't so easy. On the other hand, if you make it easier and you give them something that seems useful and I can do that, then all of a sudden the manager becomes a director of a new play. The staff begin to practice new ways of interacting. The silos one of the things we find is everything's siloed, and what everyone wants is people to work together. They come together, they don't know how to talk to each other, and we begin to watch them develop new ways of conversation. The whole day is a conversation. So now we
Right.
need new conversations, but we need some practice. And once you get going, that manager can give applause and people can help each other in ways they hadn't expected, celebrating progress. And it doesn't
Mm,
matter whether you're trying to lose weight or you're trying to stop smoking or you're trying to change your business. The same process is important, and you need a bit of a support team to do it. We are working with we built two leadership academies now for two clients, one a healthcare, one accounting firm. In the healthcare firm, the people going through COVID were destroyed by not having any patients coming in, what to do. And so first we went through this whole venting period. It's like grief. And then
Right.
we began to redesign what reality was as if it was a performance. And as a group, we began to play it out. And I was just fascinated. Once they got into it, oh, they got it. It was understandable. It was easier to play than it was to resist, and it was fun. And fun is really important. So don't underestimate how much fun is.
Well, and that's interesting because as being in the healthcare field myself for over 25 years, and I did bedside nursing for many, many years. The last 15 years I've been in corporate America with the medical industry, but nurses are very resistant to change. And I'm speaking for myself. I'm not speaking against nurses because I'm an RN. I'll always keep my license, but we do not like change. We don't like, we learn one way and we want to do it as smoothly as possible over that 12-hour shift. We don't like new equipment coming in. We don't like new policies and procedures. And that's just how nurses are. So how do you approach a nurse to get her to see things in a different way so change can occur? Because that's where your resistance is going to be in healthcare.
Well, but I worked in healthcare for 7 years, and about a third of our clients are healthcare. I had one healthcare client for 4 years, another for 3 years, all around the changes. Doctors take 13 years to adopt evidence-based medicine. So a couple of things we have to remember, one of which is in this crisis, things change fast. We had a healthcare multi-specialty practice, part of a large system. They went to telemedicine over a weekend. They said, you have to bring us up. I said, we've been talking about this for a decade. Why today? Well, we got to go telemedicine. It took doctors 3 days to get trained, and it was on. And I said, why did it take 10 years? So I used to preach, you want to change, have a crisis, or create one. It's not something I preach that I like to do. But to your point, it's easier and safer to stay with what I know than to begin to test, even if the evidence believes it is. The second thing is we buy with the heart and then justify with the head. We buy with the eyes. So we have to watch. So in a sense, you almost have to go back into training where you watch one, you see one, you do one, you teach one.
Yes.
The medical model of learning was
Yes.
exactly appropriate because if I didn't see it, I wasn't quite sure what you were telling me. And then if I didn't do it, I wasn't quite sure what it meant.
Right.
And then I teach somebody and, oh, I'm an expert on it.
True.
It's not a whole lot different. So to your point, it's not bad that you stick with what you know, but if the situation changes or the patient isn't responding, I think we need to be agile and nimble and creative and test some things safely. I won't say, go to a simulation area and to learn it, but it's not bad to think about it. And you're working in the applied medical field. If you're going to get doctors to embrace your medical technology or your new systems, the more they can practice the way they learned in medical school, and they will be uncomfortable doing that. They have to go humble. They have to say, I don't know. And next thing you know, they become real good at it. And then they teach somebody else and they're the experts. So I preach that. We do that. Humans are fascinating.
I love that. I really do, because it makes perfect sense. And that is the medical practice way that we implement to learn in the medical industry. And I want to shift a little bit because you have a new book that is coming out.
Yes.
And it is geared towards women. So of course, everyone listening is going to be interested in that. So tell us a little bit about your new book, Dr. Andi.
Well, the new book it's called Rethink, which should really hit your heart because in some ways, as I listen to you, you've smashed some of the myths about what women can do or can't do and how to do it. It came about because my husband and I launched a program at Washington University in St. Louis called the Simon Initiative for Entrepreneurship to help women entrepreneurs. What I learned being an entrepreneur, my husband is as well, is that they were looking for role models. There's a great quote by Marion Edelman that says, if you can't see it, you can't be it. It's similar to what we've just been talking about.
Right.
So unless I see somebody who's done it, I don't know. I'm a mimic. I don't know what that means. And so women were looking for role models and not Sheryl Sandberg. They weren't looking for CEO. They were looking for people, lots of entrepreneurs who had tackled new things in innovative ways. So I started to write a book about women I knew who had done just that. And my husband said to me, oh, Andi, this is about women smashing the myths of women in business. And I went, oh, that's a much better book. So I rewrote it because each one of the women in there are 10 women and myself as well. They tackled things that people said they couldn't do. Andi Kramer I had her father's friend when she was in elementary school tell her, lady lawyers are not good. You don't want to be a lady
Ooh.
lawyer. They don't litigate well. You won't have any friends. You'll never have a family. Lady lawyers are bad. So what did she become? A very successful lady lawyer, a partner in a big firm who's helping women really deal with bias in the workplace, but also about how to change the workplace where women and men can work better together. And then I have a wonderful story about Stephanie Breedlove, an entrepreneur who was with Accenture, and she had some children and then tried to pay the nanny taxes and found it difficult. And she said to her husband, "There's a problem here we can solve," and created Breedlove and Associates, a company to handle nanny taxes. Grew it to 18 million and sold it for. Now is helping others do the same. But her parents told her, "Don't do that. It will never succeed." Her husband's parents said, "Oh, that's a bad idea." And each of the stories are about women who saw what could be done. Jamie Candy, Women Don't Lead. Well, she's led 3 companies now and turned around after the guys who were running them stalled and has brought them back to growth because she listens to the customer and listens to the staff, aligns them, and manages and leads in a very collaborative way. And there's been lots of
Wow.
discussion today. I just had an article published about why did women who were running their countries, Merkel, women down in New Zealand, women in Iceland, have been doing so much a better job in the COVID crisis than the
Hmm.
guys? Is it because they lead differently? They're collaborators. They think us, we, not I. They don't have all the answers, but they bring together people who could and then begin to assess. They are different in how they build teams. As we go forward, the question is, how can women smash the myths of what women can or can't do to help change our society so that we're a better balance? It isn't equity. We're different. We don't have to be the same. We
Right.
have to respect each other and in the process do better together. So this empowerment of women, the belief they can. And at the end of the book, I have a how to rethink. And I'm developing a program now that I'd like to begin to offer to women to help them rethink who they are. And I have a process that comes out of my experience as an anthropologist changing people in companies to say there's a process you can rethink and reassess and begin to develop the new you so you can be who you want to be. And I
Wow.
think that we're on the brink of doing just that. So women can soar and all of us can rise. So I'm very excited about it coming out. It's available for pre-order at Barnes & Noble and Amazon now. And it'll be out in January 5th. And it's a time to rethink. And I couldn't have picked a better title for the moment.
A time to rethink. Is it going to be on audio?
Yes, of course.
Excellent, because I am a huge audiobook fan. I travel every week basically, and that's what I do on a plane. I don't work on a plane. I listen to my audiobooks to give me more knowledge and empower me. So
Then I
that's
will
super
send you a
exciting.
link. Sherry, I'll send you a link as soon as it's ready.
Oh, I'm so excited. That would be amazing. And I have one more question before we go off. So say you have a woman that is, has a really good background and she's wanting to be selected for leadership. So you're envisioning corporate America, because I've seen this over and over where women are passed up when they have perfect qualities, skill sets, and experience to take on a role, and she's passed up for a man. Maybe the man is better qualified, maybe he's not, but I'm seeing this woman that is perfectly qualified being skipped over many times, and I've seen this throughout my 15 years in corporate America. How does she get the attention to prove that she is the one for a higher level job in corporate America?
Very important and very challenging question. And because we've all seen it. And I was in line to be president of a bank, and it didn't work out. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
but women are different than guys. There's a story that Andy Kramer shared with me that in their compensation meeting, they often saw women talking about how they together with a team had built something to save the customer a good deal of money. And the guys talked about how they had climbed the Empire State Building to save the damsel in distress and make the company a lot of money. They had different stories to tell. My friend Dr. Gail Hayes tells me that women have to use the women's tools that they've got to begin to be who they are in the world of men. And the men have to begin to appreciate them for whom they are and what they can do. We've got a lot of work to change that model. But often I find that women come in to take on a problem that the guy before her didn't solve very well. University president, whose my book was, isn't allowed to talk about the prior president at all. And he didn't leave on exactly great things, but she had to come in and turn around. So people begin to see women as the emergency room in a different role to play. Part of what we have to do is change that. And I also think that women have to help women. One of the chapters in my book is about a woman who was president of a division of a large firm. And she said to me afterwards, I never did anything to help the women. I had a team of guys and I paid no attention. So part of this is women helping women. Part of it is the guys and the gals have to begin to respect the talent and see it in a new way. And then part of it is that we have to raise our boys and girls to see each other as teammates in a fashion which makes us equally able to lead a team. And not to put the women into a pocket that's different. There's great research on children. And Susan Pinker has a great book on the paradox of sex where she talks about it. But you put boys and girls in a room with blocks, and the girls build a kitchen and a home and a baby, and they play with each other as if they're running the kitchen and the home. The guys put together a fort, and they are the pirates who are going to tackle the enemy. And she keeps trying in the research to switch them around, and they're different.
Right.
And they see things in different ways. Now, to go back to your question, I don't have any magic to help us, except that there's a great organization called the Women's Business Collaborative that's trying to get 24% of the boards to be women, particularly women of color. And we can talk about that as well. But until the boards begin to see each other differently, the leadership begins to. So I think we have 3 to 5 years now of great transformation coming, in part because it's a changing time. The crisis is going to push us in new directions. And there are 400,000 attorneys, 65% of the accountants are women, half the doctors are women. There's something going on that's a tsunami of change that's going to change the way we work together. And I hope it's sooner than later for all of our daughters and their daughters.
Oh gosh, Dr. Andi, I could talk to you all day because you're fascinating. You really are. And you just hit the nail on the head today. And I know that some people are having some real aha moments listening to you. And I'm excited about your new book coming out. Tell everybody where we can find you. You told us where we can get the book, but you also have a book right now called On the Brink. Where can we get that book?
You can learn all about me at andysimon.com. That's A-N-D-I, andysimon.com. Our business website is simonassociates.net. We're all over social media. And On the Brink with Andi Simon is our podcast. Amazon carries all my books. And the one that's coming out, and I guess we've been ranked in the top 5 on Amazon in our category over and over again. But I do think that they're both there to help you see, feel, and think in new ways. And that's what I tell them a little corporate anthropology can help them do.
I love that. Thank you so much, Dr. Andi. I really do appreciate you. I know you're busy. You've been on a lot of different media outlets. So I do appreciate you coming on Real Girl Talk. I really do. Thank you very much again.
It's been my pleasure. As one podcaster to another, you're a super duper podcast interviewer.
Oh, thank you. Coming from you. That's wonderful. And guys, make sure you check out Dr. Andi's podcast as well. And thank you for joining me today. Remember to step out of your comfort zone, take some of Dr. Andi's advice, and make change where change is needed, because we as women are strong. We can do anything we set our minds to. We have to feel confident. In order to feel confident, we have to take that step out in courage and step out in faith. And until next week, I'll be praying for you.
The loss of a loved one is a nearly universal emotional crisis. Unprocessed grief and painful feelings can be buried, leaving you to feel numb. But there is hope. Certified grief counselor, RN, and author Sherry Ricard shares her story of how to cope in her first book, Wake Up Call, A Mother's Grief Journey, after the loss of her 17-year-old son. This book, along with Sherry's other books, are available on Amazon as well as on sherryricard.com.